Hey guys, Chris, strat-o-matic, Delaware. Coming to you this evening, January the 24th. I'd like to be the first post-giveaway video to congratulate Ken Castro on winning the giveaway for opening day. Haven't heard from him yet, so we'll see what he wants to get. A very good new friend of the channel, Clinton Parks, he was in the chat for the live stream football game between the 1958 Baltimore Colts and 1958 New York Giants, which you can see the score sheet for here, which happened earlier this evening just before the giveaway. Try to get my camera to stop bouncing. And he asked, how do I keep scores for football games? So I figured I would go through this just like with the baseball, show how I score football games. There's not really a whole lot to it. It's just a matter of knowing where to write what. I don't know that there's an official way to score. The strat-o-matic football sheets would probably work very well for two players, but having only one team on one sheet makes it difficult for a solo player to play a fast game like I have finally learned how to do. You may recognize this if you've played other games in the past. This is an adaptation of the APBA football score sheet. I cut my teeth on APBA in the late 80s, early 90s. Played hundreds of games, kept lots of stats, used the APBA score sheets for 4 years in the late 90s and early 2000s when I used to keep stats for my local high school football team. And I've always used these sheets. So I adapted it so that way I could use it for strat-o-matic football. So it would be simpler for me. It would be less of a learning curve, less of a distraction, so that way, boom, I would be able, this system works for me. And it's the same way for everybody. There's a system that works for everybody, and this system works for me. If you're familiar with APBA score sheets, you know where everything goes, but if you don't, I've got a section up here to put the teams, and I will write down who kicked in which half, score by quarters, first downs by quarters, so I'll jot those up there. Team gets a first down, R for running, P for passing, T for penalty. If you'll recall on the APBA charts, penalties were TE, TL, so I've always used T to denote a first down by penalty. Starters over here, and also other players that fall into these positions, the skill positions. Don't write down the defensive players. Don't need them when I'm playing basic. And I don't know that I would if I was playing advanced against somebody. Don't really need to have that information handy. I really wish I could get the... I've got a very weak boom on the camera, so forgive if it decides it wants to start bouncing like crazy. It's just going to do it. Sorry about that. Anyway... other things that I will note down, running backs and receivers can only go on the pass routes that they have stats for on their receiving portion of the card. So Alan Amici, 58 Colts, he only has results on his flat passes, so he can only be an intended receiver during a flat pass. Frank Gifford, flat, short, and long. He has receiving results in all three columns, so he can be an intended receiver for all of them. So I'll jot down what they're able to do for quick reference. Rushing, I'll have the running backs' names, and then for each attempt, I will write down the result, separate them by a comma, and then at the end, I will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 attempts. That's for 36 yards, 0 touchdowns. And if there was a fumble like there was with Call, the fullback, and I forgot to do it, I will put one fumble after it. So that way I know that he fumbled the ball one time. Passing. If it's a complete pass, it will be listed under next to the receiver's name, just like with a running attempt. An incomplete pass, I will mark here. Interceptions, I will mark a little further over, like Charlie Connerly down here threw 2 interceptions. And actually, that's 2 interceptions. 14. I got the right amount. I just wrote the wrong interceptions. But I'll mark interceptions over here. I will pile up quarterback sacks on the side like this. And as far as stats, Call caught 1 3-yard pass. Bob Mutscheller, tight end, caught a 15-yard pass. Lenny Moore, flanker, 15-yard pass, a 33-yard pass. Now you'll wonder what the underline is. That denotes it was a touchdown. I'll show you how I score the plays as we go also during the game. But I will underline any touchdown, so that way, just like up here, I will know that the player scored a touchdown. I will also mark complete passes here. Total passes, which will include complete passes and incomplete passes and interceptions were there any. Mark the interceptions here. Total yards gained by passing for that quarterback, and then the number of touchdowns, and then however many times he got sacked and for how many yards lost. And this sucker's bouncing around a lot tonight. Sorry about that. And pretty much the same for everything else. Kickoff returns are next. The 2 kickoff returners, what they did. So 1 return for 41 yards and a touchback. Punt returners, if there are 2 punt returners, like for the Giants, I'll have Maynard and Crow. Otherwise, Carl Tassif was the only returner listed for the Colts, so I will have him there. However many returns he had. Now, this is very fortunate, because if a safety happens in a game, I will circle the play. That is how I denote a safety occurred. And I'll show you that down there as well. He had a fair catch. He had a fumble. So I mark it the same as up here. Kickoff returns, punt returns, punts. And I haven't done it yet because I just wanted to get out of the game. I will have how many punts. I forgot to mark inside the 20. Now I know Don Chandler had this inside the 20 right here. Now if I have just an I, that means it was successful. The ball stayed inside the 20. If I put perhaps an IX next to a punt, then I know it went inside the 20, but it was returned back beyond the 20-yard line. So that's how I keep track of inside the 20 punts. So he punted 8 times for 50, 80, 110, 140, 180, plus 230, 247, 254, 265, 275, 283 yards. If any were blocked, they would have an X in front of them. Like so, perhaps. None were, so there's 0 blocks. Any that were inside the 20, I would have like in 20, and then however many were successful, 1 of 2 perhaps. That way I can keep track of punts inside the 20. Field goals, I count it however many yards it would be. If Myra had kicked a field goal and the line of scrimmage was at the 10, the line of scrimmage was at the 10 and he kicked a field goal. Since this is 58, back before they moved the goalpost to the back of the end zone, I would have had the line of scrimmage at 10 and then 7 yards for how deep he was. So it would have been a 17-yard field goal like that. If it had been blocked, it would have been, if it had just been a miss, it would have been X 17. If it had been blocked, I would make a bold X 17. So that's how I would mark field goals. Don't mind marking this up just to show you how I do it. Extra points, I'll make marks like he made it, he made it, he missed it, he made it. If it's blocked, I'll bold that as well. Then I count up however many field goals out of how many field goals successful, how many extra points, put the point total there for the player. On this sheet, I have timeouts across here. So as they take timeouts in a half, I cross them off, and then one for overtime periods. On the sides over here, fumbles, I will show we fumbled 2 times. And that's a fumble lost. That's a fumble recovered. We lost 1 fumble. Penalties, I'll have O for an offensive penalty, offsides, and then the yards, 5, 5, 5. So the Colts had 3 offside penalties, 5 yards each. If it's a defensive penalty, it'll have a D in front of it, like the Giants were called for illegal contact, 5-yard penalty. An offensive holding call for 10 yards. Defensive offside, 5 and 5. So I mark the penalties there. Back before I tried to do this fast, some of my longer videos that you will see on my channel, I would put defensive penalties over here. I decided it was faster just to put it in one place. I will list interceptions here. I may assign players beforehand. I may assign players afterhand. Same with sacks. Sacks will be there. Fumble returns, I will have O for recover their own fumble return. Call is the name of the player, 0 yards. He fell on it when he fumbled it, recovered it. He just fell on it, covered it up. If an opponent recovers a fumble, I will have X to denote that you recovered the other player's fumble. The name of the player if I assign it, and then the yards of the return, -2. As far as actually scoring the game, I will have the initial of the team, the time that it happened in which quarter, 11 seconds left in the first, name of the players involved, Gifford, 3-yard run. I will initial the kicker, so Pat Summerall, so it's S kick. New York, 7-0. Baltimore came back, 2:52 left in the second. Unitas, 33, P for pass to Moore. Steve Myra is the kicker, so M, Myra kick, tie, 7-7. And then here's the safety, 0:29 left in the second quarter. Tassif tackled in end zone. New York, 9-7. That is how I score my football games. I do not use the strat-o-matic sheets. I've never used the strat-o-matic sheets because when I got strat-o-matic football, which I love strat-o-matic football, I really do. It is such an awesome football game. Having played APBA extensively, I do prefer strat-o-matic. I would love to get APBA football, so that for the nostalgia's sake, and I would get the 86 set if I could, because that's the first set that I had. But having used this type of sheet for years, I automatically went to this. I didn't even try to figure out the strat-o-matic sheet. So this is how I score my football games. A couple of innovations that I've made. Oh, and by the way, say hi to Marvin, the Zamboni guy. Yeah, get out of here, you drunk fool. A couple of innovations that I've made to help my game go more quickly. I play a lot of games with older teams, and the X chart that comes with the game is more appropriate for teams playing, I would say, 1990 and back. Maybe somewhere into the mid-90s. Because the charts in the back of the new rule book are definitely geared more towards much modern football, late years football, like say in the last 20, perhaps 20 plus years. So I really wanted to be able to use the X chart and not have to flip it around. So I keep the penalty side up, so that way I can always see the penalty side. And I made this large index card, 5x8, I think it is, with the die rolls, and I have short gains written down, long gains written down, interception returns written down, pass rush situations for the older cards written down, and loose ball returns. Defense recovers sack or receiver fumble, and then all other loose balls. So that way, boom, at a glance, I know what my returns are. and I know what pass rush outcomes are. Another thing that I have adapted from APBA football, because when I play on my desk, I do not have enough room to have the game board opened all the way up. Otherwise, you would not be able to make anything out. So I went ahead about a month ago and I created this, which fits in a very small space. It's kind of based on the APBA game boards, where it's got the slots that I dug into some 1/4-inch foam board. So that way I could slide the first down marker back and forth and also the ball marker back and forth. Might be able to see it better there. So that way you know which yard line you're on, where your first down is. So something else that I did to help with my football game. Anything you decide to help you play your game better, it's going to make your game better for you. But I wanted to share these things with you, and I hope, Clinton, that shows you how I score football games and everybody else. I know there's a lot of interest in how I score baseball games, so I hope this is just as informative. It's not going to help with using a strat-o-matic score sheet because I never have. But that is how I do it right there. There are others who do this, and I did for a short time, where they'll get a piece of notebook paper and they'll write down kickoff 35, player for this team got it at this yard line, had this kind of return, if there was a penalty, and time on it. And I did that play by play, and then I would recreate a half at halftime and after the game using this, going play by play. But that way I would also be able to recreate a game play by play, which was really cool. And that I may do in some instances, but making videos for the channel, in the interest of keeping it short, this is how I do it right here. So hopefully this was informative, Clinton. Again, I so deeply apologize, and you know what I'm talking about. It needs to go no further, and I appreciate how much you like the channel and support the channel, and I hope I do good by you in the future. I really do. Everybody, thank you. Chris, Strat-o-matic, Delaware. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you all on the video waves really soon, I'm sure, because I can't stop making these things. Guys, have a great night. Keep on rolling.